Hello and welcome to the News by Standards. Clothing brand Abercrombie and Finch, A&F, says it is investigating allegations against its former CEO. Mike Jeffries has been accused of exploiting men at sex events he hosted around the world. An investigation found an organised network used a middleman to recruit young adult men for the events with Mr. Jeffries and his partner Matthew Smith, with some alleging they were abused. They have not responded to current criticisms. A&F, which runs around about 850 stores worldwide, including its Hollister brand, said that since being contacted, it had engaged an outside law firm to conduct an independent investigation into the claims. It said it was appalled and disgusted by the alleged behaviour. There is no evidence that the company was aware of the allegations of exploitations at sex events. It has previously described Mr. Jeffries as its modern-day founder after he transformed the Ohio-based brand from a failing heritage outfitter in the 1990s to a multi-billion-dollar teen retailer. He stepped down in 2014 following declining sales and left with a retirement package valued at around £25 million or £20.5 million, according to company filings at the time. The investigation reported that in the months before Mike Jeffries' exit, a pension fund invested in A&F brought legal proceedings in which it claimed the company had paid out settlements after allegations of misconduct by its then CEO. A source who spoke on condition of anonymity said he had seen internal documents describing payoffs for staff and agency workers who had complained about Mr. Jeffries' behaviour. The source said the documents he saw did not reveal the nature of the complaints. After the investigation into claims of exploitation at sex events on Monday, A&F said it was not aware of the allegations of sexual misconduct, and that its new leadership had transformed the company into the values-driven organisation we are today. The 2-year investigation uncovered allegations that Mr. Jeffries exploited men for sex at events he hosted in his New York residences and luxurious hotels around the world, including in London, Paris, Venice and Marrakesh. 12 men described attending or organising events involving sex acts run for the fashion mogul, 79, and his British partner Mr. Smith, aged 60, between 2009 and 2015. The 8 men who attended the events said they were recruited by a middleman who they described as having a missing nose covered with a snakeskin patch. Half the men who said about their recruitment alleged they had been initially misled about the nature of the events or not told sex was involved. Others said they understood the events would be sexual, but not exactly what was expected of them. All were paid. Mr. Jacobson denied any wrongdoing and said men went into the events with their eyes wide open. Men who attended these events said that Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith would engage in sexual activity with about 4 men or direct them to have sex with each other. Afterwards, the men said staff at the event handed them envelopes filled with thousands of dollars in cash. David Bradbury, then at 23, said he was introduced in 2010 to Mr. Jacobson by an agent who described him as the gatekeeper to the owners of A&F, but said there was no mention of sex. At their meeting, he said Mr. Jacobson suggested Bruce Weber, then A&F's official photographer, should take his picture. Then Mr. Bradbury said Jim made it clear to me that unless I let him perform sex on me, that I would not be meeting with Abercrombie and Finch or Mike Jeffries. He said he felt as though he was paralysed. Looking back, he said that this incident should have been a red flag, but he thought Mr. Jacobson was just a creepy old dude that I wouldn't have to see again. Mr. Bradbury later accepted an invitation to a daytime event at Mr. Jeffries' former home in the Hamptons on New York's Long Island, recently sold for $29 million. While there, he said he spoke to Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith about his aspirations to be an A&F model. Then he said Mr. Jeffries held poppers under his nose, a drug which can cause a strong head rush and disorientation, and later had sex with him. Another man, Barrett Powell, said he felt pressured into attending an event in the Hamptons in 2011. Then at 22, he said he was recruited by an older model who received a referral fee to be his replacement for some sort of sexual experience with the couple. He said he agreed because the older model had financially supported him and he felt indebted to him. Mr. Paul said the older model told him you don't have to do anything you don't want to, but suggested that the further you go, the better, and alluded to career opportunities. When he arrived at the event, he said he felt under pressure to perform. At one point, Mr. Paul and Mr. Jeffries was behind him, groping him. This experience, I think it broke me, he said. I think this stole any ounce of innocence that I had left. It mentally messed me up, but with the language I now have today, I can sit here and tell you what has taken place and that I was taken advantage of. The largest event described was hosted in a private villa at a 5-star hotel in 2011, for which dozens of men were flown to Marrakesh. It understands that Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith had also invited friends. Alex, who asked for his name to be changed to protect his identity, said he was a struggling model supporting his family back home when he was recruited as a dancer for the event, where he expected he would have to strip. Alex, a straight man then in his 20s, said he was auditioned by Mr. Jacobson, who praised his dancing but demanded he finish the job by performing oral sex on him. I had debt, I wanted to support my family, said Alex. I performed the job and I was disgusted. Thinking the hardest part was out the way, Alex flew to Marrakesh for the event a few weeks later, but moments into his dance, he said Mr. Jeffries tried to kiss him. I was trying to be in it without offending him. I was extremely uncomfortable. Eventually, he said he went to hide in a back room where he fell asleep. Alex said he woke up with a condom inside him and feared that the champagne he had been given earlier had been spiked. When I put things together, I believe that there is a good possibility I was drugged and raped. I'll probably never know for sure the answer of what happened. A civil lawyer who examined the evidence said US prosecutors should investigate whether what these brave men describe could be sex trafficking. Under US law, sex trafficking includes getting an adult to travel to another country or state to have sex for money by using force, fraud, or coercion. There may have been evidence of coercion for some of the men, whereas others might not have felt the coercive tactics, Ben Edwards said. He also said Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith might argue the men were consenting adults, and the fact that some had engaged in commercial sex in the past was a factor, although he said past actions were really irrelevant to whether a particular commercial sex act was because of force, fraud, or coercion. Given the stories of these brave men that have come forward, I think it's very important that federal prosecutors look into this case, adding there was a very high burden of proof for prosecutors. However, they made constant repeated attempts by letter, email, and phone over several weeks to contact Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith, inviting them to respond to a detailed list of allegations to ensure they were fully aware of claims against them. They have yet to respond. Mr. Jacobson, the middleman, now aged 70, said in a statement through his lawyer that he took offence at the suggestion of any coercive, deceptive, or forceful behaviour on my part and had no knowledge of any such conduct by others. He said he did not recall making promises of modelling opportunities. Any encounter I had was fully consensual, not coercive, he said. Everyone I came into contact with who attended these events went in with their eyes wide open.